What do you think, Chrissy? Should we go ahead and start and see?
Sure. Yes, of course. We can start.
And then you, since you're the co-host, you can add them as they.
I promise.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining this morning. And as we get going, I hope we'll have a few more that come along for the presentation. Today's presentation is about sort of my own view of what some of the best national parks, national monuments, and other interesting places and amusements to see in the United States. So I put together a little presentation. So let's jump into it. So let me do the share screen here. And here we go. And hey, it works. Yay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So here we are. And I imagine most of you know this map a little bit. And I selected this map to show you sort of the different kinds of geology and geography we have in the United States. And the western part of the United States here, as you can see, has a lot of mountains, right? And just interesting places. And that's, as it turns out, that's where a lot of these national parks are located because there's beautiful places to see. But as you can see in the east part of the United States, there are also some pretty good mountains and some interesting features. So we're going to look at everything. But as you can see, it's a big country. Just to give you a sense of the size of the United States, this has been helpful for me to sort of keep it in a perspective. So Ukraine would fit right here in Texas. So if you were to take Ukraine, you could put it right here. Okay, so that sort of gives you an idea of the general size of the United States. So so this would be like Kharkiv, and this would be Kropivnitsky, and this would be Lviv. So just some general idea of the size here. So and here's another map, and of course this map shows what we call the national parks, and these are the national government has over all these years has created and set aside to preserve these amazing places in the United States. And there are 63 national parks in the United States. And as you can see, there's about, I think 50 of them are here in what we call the 48 states. And then we have some other locations that are not in the 48 states. We have the Pacific Islands, which is a territory of the United States, American Samoa, and there's a national park there. There's a national park in the U.S. Virgin Islands down here in the Caribbean. There's also many national parks in the state of Alaska, way up north. And then there are 2 national parks in the Hawaiian Islands in Hawaii. There are 7 big islands there, and there are 2 great national parks there. And then, of course, as you can see here in the western part of the United States, many, many, many. And as some of you know, I live here. I live right here in the state of Washington, not too far from Canada. And as you can see, we have 3 national parks close by. So lucky Jeff, I get to visit these national parks. So we also talked about these monuments, and these are smaller, places, but they're great things to see. And there are 129 national monuments. So when you put it together, it's almost 200 national monuments and parks in the United States. So the first one, starting off with one of my favorites, this one is called Yosemite. It's pronounced slightly different than the way it's spelled here. And Yosemite National Park is in California. And as you can see, wow, unbelievable sight, right? These huge cliffs, this special place called Half Dome, and then these amazing waterfalls that are all in this natural valley. And this is actually not too far from the city of San Francisco in California. So as you can imagine, it's a popular park to visit for those who live in California. And it was one of the very first national parks. The next one everyone knows about, I think most people do, Grand Canyon. And I've been to the Grand Canyon, probably 20 times, maybe more. And every time I go, I'm amazed. I just stand there and I don't know what to say. I just look out and I can't imagine something so enormous. So the distance, to give you an idea, from the top of the canyon all the way down to this Colorado River, which has created the canyon, which goes through the center, it's almost 2 kilometers down. 2 kilometers down. That's how big this canyon is. It's pretty amazing. And of course, this is located in northern Arizona and southern Utah. The next one I think some of you know about too, not a national park, but it's certainly a national attraction. And it's the city of Las Vegas in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there's a lot of casinos in the United States, but this one is certainly the most famous and the most popular. I've been there many times, and every time I go, it seems like they're building more and more of these huge casinos, which are hotels and casinos. Most of these are 2,000 rooms, 3,000 rooms. The largest one, which is MGM, which is down here, has 4,000 rooms in this hotel. These are big, big places. And they're all now connected with a train system, with a rail system for those who don't want to walk this long distance. They can take a little train that takes them from casino to casino. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. This one, I think some of you may have seen it over the years. It's called Mount Rushmore, and it's a national monument. It's in the state of South Dakota, which is more in the middle of the country. And it was created and actually finished in 1941 by two guys and a bunch of workers. It took many, many people working on this for many years to finish. But he selected his own personal view of his 4 favorite presidents that we've had in the history of the United States. And this is George Washington, who was the first president, Thomas Jefferson, who was the 3rd president. This is Abraham Lincoln, who was the 16th president. And many people think that he was maybe the best president we've had. And I agree. And then this is Theodore Roosevelt, who I don't know what number he was, but he was in the beginning of the 1900s in the United States. So he selected these 4 and literally carved them into the side of a mountain. So it's a pretty impressive sight to see. Yeah, more presidents that are memorialized, but this one is in Washington, D.C. And so this one is all the way across the country from where I live, and in Washington, D.C. And it's Lincoln, of course, and Washington, but this is the Washington Monument. I think it's pretty famous. You may have seen it before. You can actually walk that. They used to have an elevator, and I think it still works. You can take an elevator all the way to the top, and there are small windows at the top, and that give you a great view of the city. And then my favorite monument in the city of Washington is the Lincoln Monument, and this is really a special spot. I just really like this one a lot. I love this part. This is called the reflecting pool, like a swimming pool. It's not a swimming pool, but they call it the reflecting pool because, as you can see, it reflects the image of the Washington Monument down this very long, narrow pool of water. It's pretty cool. So this is, oh boy, this is a strange one. This is a national monument. It's called Devil's Tower. And it's also in that state of South Dakota where Mount Rushmore is. And as you can see, it's just really bizarre looking. It's in an area where most of the ground is pretty flat. But this particular piece was an old volcano that the center of it is still there. The lava that came up from this volcano was different sort of rock, and it has remained after the rest of this was eroded away over all of the years. So you end up with this really sort of crazy looking tower in the middle of flat land. And for you movie buffs, it featured in a Steven Spielberg movie many years ago. This is one of my favorites. This is called Monument Valley, and it's actually on Native American land. It borders between Arizona and Utah. But wow, what a spot. Just incredible. These are called buttes. These little, they look like little monuments or little statues. And there's a valley that's not too far from the Grand Canyon. It's in that same general area of the United States that has many of these buttes. And it's just breathtaking. When there's a road, as you can see here, there's a road that goes right up the center of it. And as you're driving on this road, you feel like you're surrounded by these giants, these enormous buttes that are on both sides of the road. It's amazing. This is one of also the largest and oldest national parks. It's called Yellowstone, and it's located in the state of Wyoming and Montana. And it's famous for having lots of wildlife, lots of animals, including the buffalo, which you don't find much in the United States anymore. But many years ago, our country was covered with these animals. But now they're just safely reserved on this national park. They also have these geysers, these natural hot springs that every so often they get so hot, the pressure builds up so strong that the water rushes up in the air and it creates steam and it makes a big sound, and it's really exciting. And it's the only place in the United States that has these. So it's a pretty cool thing to see. Yellowstone National Park. And it was also one of the very first national parks that was created in the United States. This is one of my favorites because it's close to my house. Mount Rainier National Park. It's an old volcano, as you can see the shape of the volcano here. And it's also a mountain that I can see from my house. When I look out our back window, out of the kitchen window of our house, I took this picture I made. Yeah, and this was a morning picture, and the light was just, amazing. You know, it was this amazing color. And that's the mountain, that's Mount Rainier. It's about 50 kilometers away from my house. But it's such a big mountain, it's easy to see. And I took this picture, so that's my view that I get to see this mountain out of from our house. It's pretty amazing. And as you can see, it's a great big mountain and a very famous national park. It's 4,300 meters tall, this mountain. Huge mountain. This is also one of my favorites, also in the state of South Dakota, and it's called Badlands, sort of like, Badlands meaning not a very welcoming place. It's sort of like a desert. It's very hot, it's very dry, but they have these amazing eroded mountains that show the layers of the earth as they've been eroded. And the colors are amazing, colors in this place. You just want to take a picture everywhere you go. as you go through these badlands. And as some of you know, I've done a lot of bicycle riding in my life, and I've ridden across the country several times. And one of my trips, we rode our bicycles right through this Badlands National Park. And that was unforgettable experience to ride right through the park. More volcanoes, and this time all the way out in the Hawaiian Islands, our 50th state. And those islands are still being created by volcanoes that make those islands. And one of them has been turned into a national park. And when you visit it, you can see this, this word is called lava in English, L-A-V-A. And it's, yeah, it's amazing. And you can see the lava coming right up out of the ground. And of course, it's still very hot. There's steam and it's amazing. And it's located right next to the Pacific Ocean. So the lava will flow into the ocean, and it creates these steam plumes that are coming up that you can see in this picture. Of course, we have many amusement parks. Every state has at least 2 or 3. California probably has 10. Florida probably has 20 at least. And amusement parks are, places you go to ride the Ferris wheel, to ride the roller coaster. Oh boy, is that you, Christy, right there? Are you right there?
No, it's not me. I'm afraid of that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of famous ones. There's 2 that are probably the most famous in terms of amusement parks in the United States. And one of them is called Cedar Point, and it's located in the state of Ohio, which is not too far from Chicago. And they have 14 roller coasters at this place, 14 different ones. So you can go to this park and spend the whole day riding roller coasters and not ride the same one twice. You know, you can ride a different one every time. Yeah, I'm like you, Christy. Not so much with the roller coasters, but yeah. But if you like them, we've got a lot of them. I'm curious, what's the word? Do you have the word for roller coaster in Ukrainian? Yeah.
We call it American roller coasters, the same. Американские горки.
Oh, okay. So it's not roller coaster. Okay. Well, here's yeah.
Yeah, we call it American roller coaster.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's smart. That's smart. This one is also one of my favorites. Oh, I love this national park. It's located in the state of Oregon, which is south of where I live. And it's called Crater Lake. And as the name implies, it's an old crater from a volcano. And the crater has, over the years, filled up with water from the rain. Yeah, and it's very deep. It's incredibly deep, this crater. And the water is, as you can see from this picture, is absolutely blue. It's this amazing color of blue. And it really does match the sky on a clear day. And I visited this lake several times. It's an enormous lake. It's absolutely huge. And it's completely, surrounded. It doesn't have a river flowing into it. It gets its water from underneath the ground and also from the rain. It's a really special place, and it's one of my favorite national parks to visit. And here's a city that some of you might know about, New Orleans, and it's in the state of Louisiana, which is way down south near Texas, near the Gulf of Mexico. And New Orleans is a fascinating city, and it's really worth a visit if you ever come to the United States, because it has a completely different culture than most of the rest of the United States. New Orleans, many, many years ago, was actually sort of a place where they sent criminals from Canada when Canada was owned by France. The province of Quebec needed a place to send the bad people, you know, the people that they wanted to put into prison. So they went down the Mississippi River all the way through what was then sort of crazy. It was many, many years ago. It was the United States, but it was just starting. They would take these prisoners down the Mississippi River as far as they could go. And that's what started New Orleans. So it originally was sort of a place for prisoners. Oddly enough, it's become an amazing city over all these years. And of course, it's a big city now with lots of businesses and lots of different cultures. But the French language is still spoken there. So you can be in the southern part of the United States and go to New Orleans and hear people speaking French, which is really interesting. But they also speak it with this southern accent that you may have heard in American movies. So, you know, they talk like this. I'm from the South. I have a southern accent. You know, it's a different sound, right? So when they combine it, you have this French with the southern accent. So instead of saying parlez-vous français, you know, je m'appelle Jeff, you know, speaking French, they say parlez-vous français, je m'appelle Jeff. Yeah, it's a really unusual form of French. And they also have one other sort of phrase that is used to talk about the life in New Orleans. They say in French, it's laissez-les bon temps rouler, which means let the good times roll or let the good times happen. But the way they say it, with this crazy accent, they say laissez-les bon temps rouler. So yeah, it's a very different form of French. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a very unusual style of French. Okay, here's one that everyone probably has seen before. The Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco is, you know, we have a lot of bridges in the United States that are similar to this, but there isn't one that's more beautiful. You know, the Golden Gate Bridge is really a special spot in San Francisco. And I've been to this bridge many times, and I've actually pedaled my bicycle over the bridge a few times, which is an amazing experience when you look out and see San Francisco. And of course, no list would be complete without New York City. And I lived and worked in New York for many years. And I know the city pretty well. And it's just an amazing place. Every language, every religion, every nationality, just everything you can think of, you can find it in New York City. And of course, it's been the home over the years for immigrants to come into the United States. And the Statue of Liberty there is the emblem of that immigration. And also in the state of New York, although it's very far away from New York City, is a wonderful waterfall, and it's called Niagara Falls. And it creates the border between the state of New York and the country of Canada, in this case, Ontario, Canada. And oh boy, it's a special place. And you can see this picture, you can take a boat that goes out into the falls. Everyone is given a raincoat. You know, they have these big, heavy raincoats. And you put this raincoat over your head, you know, and you take this boat out, and it goes right through the falls. It literally goes right around the falls. And you can take pictures, and, you know, if you can, you know, it's pretty crazy. but it's a beautiful spot. And the amazing part when you visit it is the noise that the waterfall makes. It's really loud. You know, it's this, it sounds like just this roar, you know, all the time. And of course, the joke is the tourists ask, oh, well, can they turn the falls off at night? You know, do they have a little switch where they just stop everything at night? Of course, that's not possible. This is a special place. The Hawaiian Islands are unbelievable. Some people forget that it's part of the United States because it's so far away, but the Hawaiian Islands are a magical place. And if you ever have a chance to go there, I really encourage you to visit it. It's truly special. There are 7 islands, and each island is very different. They don't all look the same. They have very different geography, very, very unusual. But of course, all of them have these amazing beaches, you know, just endless beaches and great surfing, amazing surfing. That's where surfing started in the Hawaiian Islands. And no list would be complete without our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And you've heard this D.C. It stands for the District of Columbia. That's what DC stands for. And the District of Columbia means it's actually not a state. So Washington, DC is not part of any state in the United States. It's its own little district, in this case, like a region. And it's very small. Washington, DC is not large, but of course it has the center of our government. So there are lots of buildings, lots of government agencies located there. And this picture is, I like this picture a lot because you can see quite a few things here. The Washington Monument, which we looked at before, way down here at the far end, if you can see it, that's where the Lincoln Memorial is. And then all along this National Mall, they call this the mall right here, along both sides are the Smithsonian Museums. And they're an amazing thing just by themselves. Many different museums. Some are art museums, some are history museums, some are science museums. And then my favorite one, by far the favorite one, is the Air and Space Museum. That's located right here. The Air and Space Museum has a lot of these artifacts from our space program, you know, going into outer space. So they also have, it's really cool, when you walk in, you can touch a moon rock, a rock that has come back from the moon that they brought back many years ago. And you can touch it. You can walk right up to it, put your finger on it, and say that you've actually touched the moon, which is kind of fun. Anyway, so Washington, D.C., amazing city to visit. I hope many of you have a chance to see it someday. And again, one of my favorite cities in the state of Illinois, it's the city of Chicago. It's a big city. It's located on one of the Great Lakes called Lake Michigan. And one of the great things about Chicago is it has a big Ukrainian population. Yay, Ukraine! Hey! There are many Ukrainians living there. And as I think we talked about on a previous meeting, wow, there are many restaurants, many shops, lots of neighborhoods that are just Ukrainian neighborhoods. And that's all in the city of Chicago. So put that on your list. If you visit the United States, be sure to go to Chicago. This one is special. This one is really special. It's located in Colorado. It's called Mesa Verde, which in Spanish, Mesa is sort of a top of a small hill, sort of a flat part to a small hill. And verde in Spanish means green. the color green. So Mesa Verde. But this is an ancient dwelling, an ancient small city that was built by the Native Americans more than 1,000 years ago. It's really old, and it's still there. It's still being protected, and it's a national park, and it's built into the side of this cliff on this mesa. And as you can see, it's unbelievable. I think Mesa Verde, I think this is 1,400 years old, this dwelling, yeah. There are actually other ones like this in different parts of the Southwest, but Mesa Verde is probably one of the most famous. And it's absolutely amazing. One of the best parts is that you can actually walk around it. You can go down, they've built stairs and ladders, and you can go down here into this valley, and you can literally walk through this old ancient dwelling. It's unbelievable. Really cool place. And you got to include Disneyland and Disney World. And if you're going to visit the United States, if you can, it's great to go and visit them. Disneyland was the first, and it's a big amusement park with lots of things to see. And that's in California, and it's in Southern California, south of Los Angeles. And of course, there's another one in Florida, Disney World and Epcot in Florida. And they're both enormous amusement parks. I mean, these are big places. It takes many days to see them. But it's, so they all have hotels that are located in the park. So you literally go to the park and you stay in a hotel and you spend several days seeing it.
May I ask,
Yeah.
What is the Epcot? What is this?
Epcot, yeah, that's a great question. Epcot is an unusual word, and it was designed as sort of a futuristic city, and they came up with this name to describe it. And it was designed way back in the 1970s, if you can believe it, many years ago. And it was their vision of what a futuristic modern city might be. And they named it Epcot. And believe it or not, it's still there today after all these years, and they've kept the name. So yeah, it's a cool place. I've been here, I think twice. I think I visited this both Disney World and Epcot twice. And like I was saying, it's big. I mean, it takes a long time to walk and see it all. And while you're in Florida, it's always good to go to the beach. And the Florida coast has let's see, let me get this right, 800 kilometers of beach. 800 kilometers of beach. So of course, as it goes, it sticks out into the ocean. So it has beach that goes all the way around the Atlantic, and then it curves around and it goes all the way up the Gulf of Mexico side. And it's beach the entire way. So if you like the beach and you like the sun, and I'm sure on a day like today in Ukraine, this looks pretty good. This would be okay. One of my favorite cities is one of the oldest cities in the United States, and it's Boston, Massachusetts, located north of New York. It's about 300 or 400 kilometers north of New York City. It's one of our oldest cities, but it's home to some amazing, historical, for the United States, historical places. It's also the home for Harvard University and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, two of our best universities. And it's just a wonderful city. And it's much smaller. This picture still looks big, but it's actually a fairly small city. So easy to walk around it. You can actually walk around the city and pretty much see everything without having to take a train or take a bus. And it's just a special place to go. If you visit the East Coast, and you go to New York City and Washington, D.C., Boston is a great third city to stop and see. Now we're back out west in the state of Utah, and this one is an amazing park, Arches National Park. And as the name implies, these arches are naturally occurring in nature, and they're in this special spot that's on the eastern side of Utah, near the state of Colorado. I visited this park, and you literally can't believe what you're seeing. You see these natural arches that were created by water going down the side of cliffs. And over time, it makes the cliff erode back into itself. And then eventually the cliff goes away and it leaves behind these amazing natural arches. And there's really nowhere else in the United States that has this sort of rock formation. And as you can see, it's unbelievable. This arch is just incredible. I just can't believe it when I see it. But anyway, it's in a special part of Utah that takes a long time to drive to. But if you're ever visiting that part of the United States, you really have to stop and see it. And not too far from there, in the state of Wyoming, it's called Grand Teton. And if you like to hike, if you like the mountains, and you like getting away into nature and not seeing anyone else for days and days and days, this is the place to go. You go back into those mountains and udachi, good luck. I mean, there's nothing back there. You're on your own. And of course, the mountains are gorgeous. It's a beautiful place. San Francisco, one of the most amazing multicultural cities. And again, by the way, a large number of Ukrainians live there. There is a Ukrainian consulate located in San Francisco, believe it or not. But again, it has every nationality, every language. It's really a diverse city. It has some very tall hills. One of them has a famous road on it that's called Lombard Street, or Lombard Road. And as you can see, it's so steep. The road has these little curves in it that help the cars get down to the bottom. It has a very large Asian population, particularly Chinese population. And there's a very large sector or segment of the city that's called Chinatown. And lots of great Chinese food and Chinese shops. I lived and worked in San Francisco for many years in the 1990s. And worked right next to Chinatown. So I had great Chinese food every day for lunch. It was wonderful. And it also has these great cable cars that go up these very steep hills away from the water. And the cable that pulls this trolley, it's actually in the ground. There's a cable that's moving in the ground. And the car has a device that grabs onto that cable and pulls it up these very steep hills. So that's a lot of fun to ride because they're going up these very, very steep hills. And another amazing park located not too far from the Grand Canyon. You can see the same color of rock, but the erosion is very unusual here. It's called Bryce Canyon. And it's a place where you just can't take enough pictures. Every time you see something, you say, oh, I got to take a picture of that. So, I have like 1,000 pictures of Bryce Canyon over the years. It's an amazing national park. And what's great about it is it's easy to see. It's not hard to get into. And they have very good roads that go through this canyon that you can stop and again, take lots and lots of pictures. A beautiful place. And it's again, located in the state of Utah. And last but not least, my favorite city in the United States because I live not too far from Seattle. And as you can see, it's a very sort of a modern looking city. And it has a great view of that mountain that we talked about earlier, Mount Rainier. And this is not a fancy photo. This is what it looks like. When you're in the city of Seattle on a clear day, you can see it from many spots of the city you look at, and there's this enormous mountain that you can look at from almost anywhere in Seattle. It has a lot of cool features in the city. One of them that's most recognizable is this big tower. It's called the Space Needle. It was built for a special exhibition back in the 1960s, all the way back to the 1960s. But one of the cool features is at the very top, you can see up here, at the very top, this is actually a restaurant. How cool is that? So you can sit in this restaurant, and the restaurant has a floor that moves. The restaurant moves, it rotates. We say rotate. And while you're eating, your view keeps changing because the restaurant keeps moving as you're eating. So after 1 hour, it does one circle in 1 hour. So as you're eating, you get a different view throughout the time that you're enjoying your meal. It's a cool place. Anyway, this is the city of Seattle, home to lots of famous businesses. Some of them you know about. Microsoft is located in Seattle. Amazon.com you may have heard about. They're located here. And the big manufacturer for airplanes, Boeing Airplanes, is located here in Seattle. And of course, lots of high-tech companies. Seattle has a big high-tech economy. And that is that. Oh, Stas, you joined us. How you doing, Stas?
Yeah.
Sorry you missed us. Anyway, so that's what I've got. So let me bring this all back. So, any questions? We covered lots of different views there.
Any questions, guys?
This is your big chance.
You missed half of the meeting. You should ask something.
Stas, when we talk tomorrow, I'll show you tomorrow.
Yeah, basically, I saw like the 3 or 4 last places that you were showing. And
Yeah.
I have one question about that San Francisco trolley. So you said that they have the power line like on the ground, right? So it's like
It's actually,
almost like a subway.
yeah. Well, it's not even a power line. It's a cable. It's a very thick steel cable that moves. That moves underground. And the cable car actually has a device that grabs onto the cable. And
So it's not like electrically moved, but it just pulled. Okay, understood.
Correct. It's very old. It goes back many years. And this cable moves underground. And it actually pulls the cable car up these very steep hills.
Oh.
Yeah. It's really unusual.
Yeah.
Have you been
I
in
thought that
places that you showed us today?
I'm sorry, Christy, I didn't hear you.
Have you been in all these places that
Everyone. I have visited every place I showed you. I promise. I have been to every one. And I mean, the United States is a great country to visit. There are lots of sites. The only problem is that it's a big country.
huge.
So, yeah, it's a big place. So you have to travel quite a bit. But if you have time to travel, oh my goodness, there's an awful lot to see. As a matter of fact, since we're almost out of time here, aren't we, Christy? Well,